Corporation Board of Directors, a 5-year term effective immediately and ending December 31st, 2024. Dr. Pennington, if you could come up here to the podium where we can talk to you for a minute. So your appointment, you are currently a member of the Lottery Commission Board, and this is a reappointment for a 5-year term. If you would please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background for the committee members that weren't here last year.
Okay, my name is Cass Pennington. I was born and raised in Holland Hill, Mississippi. Finished high school there. Got 4 college degrees. Degree from Jackson State University. Bachelor's, a master's degree from Tennessee State University, an education specialist degree from Delta State University, my doctorate degree from Mississippi State University. I worked in education, taught school, served as a principal, and school superintendent. Also worked at Delta State, a stint, administrative assistant to the president. I've served in a lot of capacities around the state. Just name a few of them. I was served on the IHL board for 11 years, served on the State Health Board, a past president of the Delta Council, and done a lot of other things around the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Dr. Pennington. I see on our peer report indicates that as a member of the Lottery Board Corporation, they've had about 21 meetings last year, and you attended all of them, either telephonically or in person, which I appreciate. We want to see members that are active in these boards that they're being appointed to, and given kind of the, in its infancy, what is your assessment of the Lottery Corporation? I know to the public it seems like things have been running really smoothly. I think y'all have done a great job. Will you kind of give us some insight into how the first year or so has gone serving on that board?
Well, the first year has been fantastic. Money's coming in very strong, and Lord knows, traveling Jackson this morning on the highways, we sure need the money to fix roads and bridges.
Sir. All right. Well, according to Peer, you meet all the statutory qualifications, and there was no derogatory information in your report. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Jordan.
Make a statement. I've known Dr. Pennington, I'm not trying to tell his age, for the last 40 years, and I taught in the town where he was superintendent at the time in Indianola, Mississippi. So he's, as you've indicated, he has done one of the first person on IHL board way back when we were trying to get people on there. He was one, and done a yeoman's job there, and he's just the ideal person for the position, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions? Senator Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Pennington, you said that the things are going well at the Lottery Commission. Has the pandemic had any impact on revenues?
Just for a little while. It dipped for just a moment, but everything is back to normal and is going very strong.
What are your annual revenue collections? Do you know right offhand? I mean your monthly collections.
The year to date, like I looked at my phone a while ago, I think it's 314 million plus has come in, according to the last report I got on my phone.
314 million in the last quarter?
No, the last year.
That's from inception to now?
Sir?
That's from inception to now?
No, sir, for this year.
Of this current year.
So this current, since January 1st, that's what the collections have been like?
2020 year, if I looked at it correctly.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Horn. Are there any more questions from?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say, I know Dr. Pennington by reputation. I think we may have met once before, but I've observed him over the years on his service, not only in education, but a number of boards, councils, and commissions that he served on, and he's always done a fantastic job.
Thank you, Senator Horn. Are there any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, is there a motion? All right, Senator Black makes a motion, we do advise the consent. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Dr. Pennington. Appreciate your time. Thank you for driving down today.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Senate nomination number 10, Jackie Turner, Executive Director of Mississippi Department of Employment Security, a term effective July 14, 2020. Turner, if you would please come up to the podium and thank you for being here today. Would you kind of introduce yourself and give a little background to the committee that has not had the chance to meet you yet?
Okay, I'm Jackie Turner. I am got 33 years of state government, and 28 of those years have been at Department of Employment Security. I was born and raised in Salis, Mississippi, Atala County. Very proud of that. So I have grown up here in state government and loved what we do at Employment Security, and am passionate about the role we play in serving Mississippians. I have 3 children. I'm married, have 3 children. I have a bachelor's degree from the Mississippi State University in accountancy, and spent a majority of the years responsible for the finances at Employment Security. First worked at the auditor's office for 4 years, and then went to Department of Employment Security, where I had the responsibility for the finances for a number of years, and then took on programs as well. Served as Deputy Executive Director under Mark Henry for 7 years before Mark left. Was appointed by Governor Phil Bryant last year and was confirmed by this committee, and then selected by Governor Reeves and have to get confirmed again. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Here states that your appointment does not conflict with statutory qualifications. It is a 4-year, up to 4-year term, and there is no derogatory information regarding your appointment. So if you would, obviously, we've all been aware of what's been going on with the health crisis and just several different facets of our government and how we're having to adapt and deal with some of the issues related to COVID-19. Will you kind of give us a summation of where we are right now with the unemployment department, unemployment security, and just kind of give us your thoughts on kind of not a postmortem, but just kind of where, kind of the difficulties you went through and kind of where we are right now and what's going on.
Be happy to. First of all, let me say that we are a state workforce agency, and we're all federally funded, and we have the unemployment insurance program is a major component of what we do, but along with that, we have several other workforce type programs, including Title I of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Adult Dislocated Worker Youth, Wagner-Pizer, labor market information, so several things that Employment Security does. But of course, in the last few months, all of us at MDS, and there's a number of people here with me today, we've been focusing on the pandemic and the call for us to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. Were we prepared? Absolutely not. Our economy was good. We had about 1,000 claims a week. In those times when claims are low and the economy is good, unemployment insurance agencies like us across the nation have less staff because everything's good. That's the way the program works. The economy gets bad, we are entitled to more money. So the crisis hit, and of course, one thing I have learned through all this is don't ever have your phone system hooked up with your call center system. One of the lessons learned is separate your call center system from your phones and your job centers and your state office. No one could get through to us. We couldn't get through to anyone. And we heard your cries. We heard our claimants' cries. I've got some statistics here I wanted to read because they're overwhelming. Since the middle of March, we have paid out about $1.7 billion. A lot of that's from the CARES Act. That's the amount of money that we've been dealing with, $1.7 million. When we started this in the middle of March, our Mississippi Unemployment Trust Fund was right at 710 million. As of today, it's at 457,810,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, if you think, I made a request to the Senate and the House for an infusion of States CARES Act funding in the amount of $500 million. In consultation with the governor's office and actuarial analysis, thinking about what I just said about how much is going under the trust fund, and that it's June and we still have quite a number, let's see, about $173 million a week going out, and about 25 million of that right now coming from the state's trust fund. So we are all hoping, praying that the economy gets better, and it already is. But if you extrapolate that out for the remainder of the year, the request I made for $500 million is the best forecast that we can provide right now. I made that request based on what we know. There's some assumptions in there, and as we go forward, it will become more evident what exactly that amount it is. But I think that based on circumstances, it's pretty close. That would keep the general experience rating of employers it's currently at 0%, 0.2% for the training collection tax that everyone has. But if there's not some money that goes back into the trust fund, it will cause a tax increase for employers, specifically the general experience rating. When we started this, we had about less than 500 employees. I got the statistics today. We have about 550 employees now. We started out with about 60 temporaries, and that's right at 300 now. We've engaged with contractors, the Horn Group, and they subcontracted with People Shores, the Scarlet Pearl, and we're bringing on Mississippi Industries for the Blind to provide additional call service. We've changed the way, in the middle of all this, our phone system, our call center system was up for renewal. It was at its end of life. So it was like a perfect storm, but we've moved over to a different type of phone system, and we're using the old one for callback assist. So we've implemented callback assist in the last few weeks because the cases that are left are more complicated than just a straight claim. We've served most of everyone that has filed since March, and that number, we've had 357,871 initial claims filed since the middle of March. And remember, I said it was about 1,000 a week before that. And that's people that have filed an initial application. As of week ending June 6th, continue claims, which means the ones that are still filing every week, is right at 155,000. So some of those initial claims, they never did take any action on it, but we can see from that about half are still making a claim for unemployment insurance every week. So it's still quite a bit of volume, but we've seen the number of calls coming into the call center go down. We've seen, I'll say we've seen less requests from you all. And if there's one thing that I think we've done many things well, but let me say one thing I think that we've done well is be responsive to the legislators, congressional, and the governor's office. And if there wasn't something that was responsive, then it was simply because it slipped through my phone or my email because of the hundreds or thousands a day that we've been getting. We've learned a lot of things. If this, we strategize, we have a strategy meeting once a week. What are we doing different than we did on day one? You can't, with the volume of calls that were coming in, you can't just throw people at it. There's not enough people you can throw at it to answer the volume of calls. So we are instituting callback assist, chat bots, chat feature, robotics, artificial intelligence, and bots to take on some of that. So we're in negotiation and planning with contractors right now to add those features to our repertoire of ways to serve people. I know that going forward, specifically because the Win Job Center system, and that's part of our responsibility as well, we did not serve unemployment insurance customers in the Win Job Centers. It's by telephone or online. I think that in the future we need to give more assistance in the Win Job Centers because we simply know that from all of this that some don't have the broadband capability or they just need help. So going forward, we intend to provide more unemployment insurance service in the Win Job Centers. Exactly what that will look like, I'm not sure yet. It depends on funding, but we intend to do that. Let me stop there and see if anyone has questions.
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation. I appreciate it. I'm gonna turn it over to the committee to see if there are any questions from the committee. Senator Parker?
Thank you, Jackie, for being back here, and thank you for meeting with us a few weeks ago in front of my committee. At that time, you know, the focus was a little bit different. We spoke a whole lot at that time about the investigation process. I think at that time we had a little over 43,912 investigations actively going on, and the governor was good enough to make an executive order to place the look-back period to just be in the prior employer instead of the entire long year-and-a-half period or whatever that period is. How has that done in helping your agency? I know at that time, too, you were looking to make some additional hires, and there was another announcement. Can you give us an update on where that investigation number stands and whether or not, beyond the executive order of the governor, if we need to consider extending that provision on the look-back for longer for you?
The look-back period in looking at the last employer which is not the traditional way, helped tremendously, and it allowed us to, I'll use the term, wipe out a lot of the issues that were holding people up from being paid. So we were happy to get that included in the executive order. That the number of investigations, I don't have that specific number with me, but I know it is below 10,000 now, if not lower than that. They tell me that all have been contacted in some form or fashion. Some of them are extremely complicated. They may have refused work, quit. They fall between unemployment insurance and the pandemic unemployment assistance. But that particular feature helped us in moving forward with getting claims paid. As far as the future, I think that's something that is worth looking into legislatively for the whenever you all want to take that up. But when employers are charged against their account, if we look at the last employer, that last employer will get the charges. So there's some things we probably need to look a little bit further into and make sure that we are being as equitable as we can.
Just to follow up on that, we've got legislation already moving, you know, that we amended a bill and added a provision in there to kind of look after our employers a little bit more. And what's in that bill right now is basically not looking at the COVID period, you know, for changes in the employer general rating or the experience rating and that kind of thing. And the language as it looks right now, you know, starts in March and extends through the end of the year. And then for your averages, where you do the look back over the 2 to 3 year period, it would basically take that period out of there. So the hope on that, and I would love to, you know, get your input on that too, on whether or not that would affect your projections and other things there. But we're trying to keep that for this period as something that's good for our employers, but hopefully still good for the people who are trying to get back to work. But do you have any comments on that, or were you aware that we were moving that?
Well, you and I spoke on the phone, I think maybe last week or the week before, about some of those things. And you're a business owner, and you know that employers are either reimbursable employers or rated employers. And the rated employers have an individual experience rating and a general experience rating. And based on current law, if the trust fund goes below a certain amount and some things in the law happen, the size of fund index and those kind of things, the general experience rating even if the individual rating isn't affected because of the COVID related, if the trust fund is low, then something has to bring it back up. And that's typically, the general experience rating keeps that on a more,
That's what our language actually deals with, though, is
keeping
is
it.
freezing the general experience rate during the COVID period.
You and I talked about that, and we have had several discussions about keeping it at consistent, at least for the 2021 year, and that is something that could be done. My fear in all that is what I just talked about the true amount in the unemployment trust fund, and if it continues to go down and deposits are not being made to keep up with that, I don't think we want to be in a situation where we have to borrow from the federal government, because if that happened, because if we did, that would certainly affect employers' rates because we have to pay it back. It's a balancing act, but with a lot of assumptions at this point, but keeping the general experience rating at 0 or 0.2 for the training tax would, for the immediate few months to come, help employers out. But since that's a 3-year period going forward, how will it affect for 2022 and 23, and what will our true unemployment trust balance be?
I just want to thank you for your willingness to take calls and to answer questions and to work on these things. And, you know, when we first met earlier in the year, this was not what we thought we were going to be talking about, but I thank you for that willingness to do that.
Thank you. Senator Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may have misunderstood, but didn't I hear you say that we paid out $1.7 billion? Isn't that what you said earlier?
$1.7 billion with a majority of that from the CARES Act.
Yeah, that was my question. Of the 1.7, how much of that was federal money? Can you tell me that?
I have them in different columns, but our state's part of that was right at 278 million out of, those are approximate numbers, but
Thank
the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, which is the extra $600, and that extra $600 gets added to all the different programs that we have going on right now, from pandemic unemployment assistance, regular unemployment, extended benefits, disaster unemployment assistance for the tornadoes and things. So that $600 to the end of July gets added on to that. And of that 1.7 billion, 1.3 billion of that is the extra 600. And that's from the middle of March going forward.
Is there kind of a magic number on the unemployment trust fund where the general experience rating issue comes up?
Based
Or
on,
is it a comment? I don't know if it's a less than overly burdensome calculation, or is it a pretty in-depth?
it's pretty in-depth.
Never mind then. All right. I think Senator Horn had a question. I'll get y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Turner, can you tell us when the $600 per week supplement ends? Is it the end of June or end of July?
End of July.
And are there any prospects that it's going to be extended?
Well, that's a good question, and I have to say that we did get a call from U.S. Department of Labor, National Office leaders, unemployment insurance leaders, asking us some questions about the what-ifs. So I wouldn't be surprised if something didn't get extended. It may not be. I doubt it would. If anything is extended, I don't think it'll be $600. They were asking us if it was something different than that, what? And I mean, honestly, I told them if there was a lot of programming involved. I just have to say this. Mississippi's unemployment system, the IT system, is one of the more sought after in the United States. It's one of the more modern. We are in a consortium based on Mississippi's system with Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Oklahoma. We were able to make those changes for the new programs over the last few weeks, and actually, from the time Governor Reeves signed the CARES Act agreement to the first $600 payments we made, it was less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half. That's extraordinary for a state to do. Some of these other states still aren't paying. It's specifically extended unemployment compensation and may not be able to pay, they may just not can get their programs, their systems changed because they're legacy systems or something. But they did ask about some other things, and I honestly told them that if there was programming involved and it took us or other IT shops around the nation another round of trying to get that done, and there was a gap in weeks from when people weren't receiving anything, that we would be kind of maybe where we don't want to go again with the outcries, because if they qualify, they want the money. I understand that.
So the way the program works is the Department of Labor, I'm assuming, or Treasury, sends Employment Security the money for the 600, and you all cut the check to the claimants.
That's correct. It's a direct deposit or a debit card, but yes, they have money available in these different accounts from the Treasury, and we pull it down based on our need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator England.
Hey, Ms. Turner, thank you for appearing for us today. And I'll say before I get to my question that I've had a lot of questions that I've directed to you and to your staff members and other directors throughout the state, particularly Robert Freeman down in the southern part of the state has been a great help, and I appreciate that very much. My question, when we talked previously, there was an issue coming about where there were appeals being filed, and these appeals were, some people were getting appeals dates in November, and they were looking at the moratorium on the evictions ending as it did on June 1st. Have you been able to speed up that process of getting appeals through the system? And if so, I'd be interested in hearing how you've done that.
We have been able to speed it up, and unfortunately, the appeals process does involve people, a group of people that are experienced in unemployment insurance, looking at the facts and making a decision about the case. So we have brought on additional staff, specifically retired staff that have UI knowledge and are able to move those caseloads forward quicker.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Another question when we spoke before was on the communications between MDES and claimants. And we discussed whether, I know you've already talked about callbacks, but we talked about additional emails and maybe sending texts out. And I'm interested to see if that has improved, and if so, if you could tell us how you were able to do that.
Sure, and I have to say thank you for we've learned a lot from you all as well on things that we can do better, or maybe because we're in the thick of things, it's hard for us in the minutia of what's going on that we need to take a step back and go, what is it? Better communication was one thing in particular I remember you saying. We have taken, if you look at our website now versus when you looked at, there's tons of more information. In the system itself, we were so quick. Our first thing was get the payments out so that they can begin receiving money. Along the way, if they looked at their account in the system, they could not see well what they were getting. It wasn't showing the extra $600, and those screens and all have been updated, and they look really well. We have sent out numerous email blasts from all our different email accounts to say, I don't know what all the messages say, but one in particular I know is that the CV-19 box that we set up quickly had a large number of emails in it, so we sent out an email blast that gave them specific information and then said, now, if you still need us, do these things. And we've done quite a bit of those things. And it's our intention, if money allows, to engage with, I'll say, a communications group, a public relations group, to do even more of that. It's not over, of course. We are hoping that more and more will go back to work, but we don't know if it'll be extended. We don't know if we'll have a resurgence and all of those things. So we're not going to stop with our initiatives to make our communication better.
And I'll just ask one more, because I know some other members may have questions, and I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, you giving me the time here. I still am receiving a few emails with people that aren't getting their cards in. Are you aware of that problem, and is there anything that that you see we can do going into the future about that, or is that problem being addressed for these individuals that are seeing money on their account and they don't have their card, or vice versa, they might have their card and not have money on their account? Is that still an issue?
It's less of an issue. The debit card company expressed to us early on that they are a supply chain kind of thing, and their resources were stretched to the limit as well, the number of cards and the mailing system, and couldn't depend on the partial delivery to deliver when they were supposed to. But we have run queries recently, and we keep running them, of scenarios such as that. Debit card issued, not received, and they're calling every single person. Some of it ends up being fraud, but it tells us a lot. It tells us whether there is a situation of timing and that kind of thing, or why haven't they received a card, and we're calling every single one of them to see what the issue is and clear it up. In the future, what happens with the way the resources we use for the debit cards is up for consideration.
Okay, Ms. Turner, thank you. And I would say that, and I don't have any reason to doubt this, I do hope that if we go forward with this confirmation today, that you'll maintain this good working relationship you have with us and the availability, and I do appreciate that because you have been available whenever we call on that, and I do appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Turner.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Parks, do you have a question?
Very briefly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for being here, and for the sake of the committee, I want to thank you for the work that you did. You have been responsive to every communication I have sent, weekends, late hours. My personal opinion, you were handed something that was unfair, particularly from the federal government, when on March 27th they announced a $600 kicker that we would all like to have, and you were inundated with claimants from the state of Mississippi who wanted to file their claim, but also people who wanted to know what that meant, and we didn't have guidance from DOL for several weeks. And I appreciate the hard work you've done. I'm sure anybody could say in hindsight I would do something different, but I don't think you could have worked much harder. And I know for a fact you couldn't have been more pleasant, no matter what hour of the day I called or contacted you. I thank you. This is a confirmation hearing. I support your confirmation, and I hope we confirm.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Boyd, you have a question?
Yeah, just a brief question. To echo Senator Sparks, returned every phone call, no matter how late. Your staff, particularly Daphne James, who helped a number of us in here in North Mississippi, was returning phone calls at 10:30 at night to my constituents to try to help them out. I have some very difficult claims because we have a number of employees in my area that are part of the gig economy, which I think we all learned what that was during this process. And I can't thank you enough. So as this is a confirmation hearing, I fully am supportive and thank you for the efforts that you made in trying to work with us when none of us had answers. We were all frustrated. You were very calm and always so professional in your efforts. A quick thing that has come up in my community is if we can really work, some of the employers in my area have been offering employment back to some of their employees, and those employees have chosen not to return. They have not received notices yet that those employees have filed for unemployment, but they are aware of that as it's a small town and we kind of know about each other, as most of us in here in Mississippi do. If we could help those businesses be able to get a list of who has filed, it would make sure, they want to make sure and be proactive in notifying you if they need to, they haven't received notices on everybody yet. And I'm sure that's because there's so many notices to go out now. So if we could follow back through with that and see if there's a way that if an employer calls in, that they could get a listing, or if they could email in somehow, if they could get a listing of, I don't know if this computer system allows them to capture that, but if we could work on that, that would be most appreciated by my employers.
Thank you, first of all, and thank you for bringing that up, because I did want to talk a little bit about that. We're doing exactly that. We've been working with the Restart Committee, and there's always been a way to report to us when those kinds of issues. But we quickly saw that it was not robust enough, or we needed to capture information and have less paper as possible and less going back and forth, because it takes time. So coming online on Monday is a Restart Mississippi portfolio, and it basically is going to allow employers, and we're going to send a blast out to employers. I will share that information with you all as well in the Senate and the House, so you can help tell your employers where to go. It will allow an employer to look at all their employees and tell us things. Did they ever get laid off? Did they do we have someone that it looks like fraud and something's going on? I offered them a work and we can't find them. We're gonna be able to tell a lot, and on the back end of that, it will do things in the system to automatically initiate some correspondence and all to more rapidly get the stops in place. Because in the end, if employees or someone's drawing unemployment and they're not supposed to be, they're going to have an overpayment and they're going to owe it back. And that's penalties and interest and tax intercepts and those kinds of things. So, and employers need us as well, because they need their workers back. So that is, it's tested. It's been tested this week. They're doing a little bit more testing, but it will be live on Monday, and we're going to communicate to employers through our tax system, and then I will send that information to you all as well to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I'm going to recognize Senator Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do want to ditto it, what all of the senators have said about the accessibility of Ms. Turner. When we began this process back in March, Ms. Turner and her staff participated in Zoom meetings with the Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus with constituents from across the state. And then she dedicated employees to the legislators for us to be able to call. With that being said, I would like to ask that we do advise in consent based upon Ms. Turner's birth in Durant, Mississippi. She's a constituent of mine. And based upon her home address in Dallas, Mississippi, she's my constituent. So I do ask that we advise in consent.
All right, you've heard the motion to do advise and consent on the nomination of Ms. Jackie Turner. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let's have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion rise report.